You probably think you're safe in your room. Four walls, a door that locks. Maybe a soft nightlight to push back the dark, just enough to sleep. But what if I told you the last shadow in your room isn't yours? And worse, what if it's been there for longer than you realize? This is not just a story, it's a warning. Don't turn around. It started with a camping trip. Of course it did. The kind you do to get away from things, your phone, your job, the same routine. For Miles and Jenna, it was supposed to be a weekend to reconnect with nature, to breathe in pine-scented air and fall asleep under a sky of stars. Just the two of them. No service, no distractions. They drove 6 hours to a remote forest reserve in the Pacific Northwest, deep enough that even Google Maps lost confidence. The ranger station was long abandoned, the sign bleached from sun and time, and the trail barely visible beyond a crooked wooden post that read, "Old Pine Trail, use at your own risk." They pitched their tent near a stream and built a fire. The air was quiet, eerily so. No birdsong, no rustling critters, just wind whispering through the trees in a way that didn't feel right, like it was trying to speak a language no one should understand. By nightfall, the woods turned unnaturally dark, as if the trees themselves swallowed the moonlight. As they sat by the fire, Miles noticed it first, a figure just on the edge of the clearing, not moving, not approaching, just there. "Do you see that?" he whispered. Jenna squinted. "It's probably a tree." "No," Miles said, his voice thinning. "It's watching us." But when he shined his flashlight toward it, nothing was there, just the void between the trees. They tried to laugh it off. Tired eyes, tricks of the firelight. They zipped themselves into the tent, trying to shake the unease. But something didn't want them to sleep. In the dead of night, Jenna woke to a sound, like fingers dragging across the tent fabric. Long, slow strokes. She held her breath, thinking it might be a raccoon or some animal, until she heard breathing, heavy, low, right outside the tent wall. She nudged Miles. "Something's out there." He sat up slowly, listening. The breathing stopped. Then a whisper, barely audible. "Let me in." They froze. "Who's there?" Miles called out, his voice trembling. Silence. He unzipped the tent and stepped out with the flashlight. The beam sliced through the darkness, but nothing moved. No footprints, no sign of life. Just the stillness of the forest, like it had been holding its breath. But that's when they noticed it, their shadows cast by the flashlight against the tent. There were three. Jenna was still inside, Miles was outside, and yet a third shadow stretched unnaturally tall and thin, unmoving between them. He whipped the flashlight around, nothing there, but the shadow remained like it had imprinted itself on the world. They didn't sleep. At dawn they packed up and hiked out, not even bothering with breakfast. But something followed them. They couldn't hear it, couldn't see it, but they felt it. A pressure behind their eyes, a weight on their backs, and at every stop, when they stood still, there was always one more shadow than there should have been. Back home, things didn't go back to normal. It started small, lights flickering, objects not where they'd been left. But Miles saw it first, clearly this time. As he brushed his teeth one night, he saw a shadow move behind him in the mirror. He turned. Nothing. But when he looked back, the shadow was still there, standing inside the mirror just behind his reflection. Jenna refused to believe it, said he was sleep-deprived, paranoid. But she couldn't explain why she kept waking up at 3:11 a.m. every night, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the same corner of the room. There was no furniture in that corner, no shelves, nothing that should have cast a shadow. But each night there it was, a tall, lean silhouette, still as death. They tried everything, salt lines, sage, cameras. But nothing caught it. The cameras always glitched. The salt lines remained untouched. but the shadow never left. And then it started speaking again, whispering from the walls, the vents, the darkness. You let me in. They didn't remember inviting anything, didn't perform any rituals. But whatever it was, whatever had followed them back from those woods, it was inside now. It didn't want to scare them. Not just that. It wanted to become part of them. There's something deeply unsettling about sleeping away from the safety of your own bed. The woods, with their quiet whispers and dark silhouettes, can twist the mind. But sometimes it's not your imagination. Sometimes the shadow in your room isn't yours. And no matter how much you try to convince yourself otherwise, whatever you do, don't turn around. The trip was meant to be a reset. No phones, no stress, just 3 days of camping with friends at Grey Pine Forest, a stretch of dense wilderness miles away from the nearest town. Jackson, Liz, Mark, and Taylor had grown up together, but life had pulled them in different directions. Jackson, who organized the trip, thought it would be a perfect reunion before adulthood completely consumed them. The first day was uneventful. The group pitched their tents near an old ranger cabin, abandoned, its roof half-collapsed and wood blackened with rot. They laughed about ghost stories and shared drinks around the fire until the stars shimmered bright overhead. It wasn't until late that Jackson noticed something strange. As he zipped up his tent, he saw a shadow shift behind him, too quick and low to be an animal, too silent to be a person. He turned, flashlight beam slicing through the trees. Nothing. Just the pale fog creeping in from the forest floor. He chuckled nervously and blamed it on the drinks. That night, something woke him. A sound, faint, scratching. It was just outside the thin nylon wall of his tent. His breath caught as the sound stopped. He reached for the flashlight, but it wouldn't click on. Dead batteries. Typical. For a moment, everything was quiet again, and he almost believed it was a dream. Then, a voice, barely a whisper. "Jackson, it's cold out here." He froze. It was Liz's voice, but warped, like it was echoing underwater. He unzipped the tent flap and peeked out. No one. Just trees swaying in the wind and that same creeping fog. He stepped out, barefoot on damp earth. "Liz," he called, voice cracking. No answer. His light still wouldn't work, and the moon barely cut through the haze. He circled the camp, checking each tent. Everyone was asleep, or seemed to be. Liz was snoring softly. But then, who called his name? The next morning, Jackson didn't mention what happened. He wasn't sure if he'd dreamed it or not. But Liz looked pale and kept glancing toward the tree line, as if something were watching. When Mark asked if she was okay, she shook her head. "I had a dream last night. Someone was inside my tent. They whispered in my ear. It sounded like Jackson." Jackson stiffened but said nothing. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe. That day, the group hiked deeper into the woods. They found an old fire lookout tower half-eaten by moss, its stairs collapsed and frame rusted. As they explored, Taylor found something odd. A child's shoe, small and covered in dried mud, lying beneath the steps. No trails led there, no signs of families or other campers. "Creepy," Mark said, tossing it aside. "Probably just someone dropped it years ago." But the unease lingered. That night, Jackson couldn't sleep. The forest had changed. The usual hum of insects was gone. No owls, no rustling, just silence, too silent. And then, the scratching returned. He sat upright, heart pounding. Slowly, the shadows outside his tent grew longer, darker, until they pooled at the entrance like smoke. Something was on the other side of the fabric. Its silhouette didn't move like a person. It was twitching, disjointed, with limbs too long and head slightly cocked. He didn't dare speak. He barely breathed. He shut his eyes, thinking maybe if he ignored it, it would go away. Then it whispered again. "Jackson, I like your room." His eyes snapped open. Room? What room? Suddenly, he wasn't in his tent anymore. He was back in his bedroom, his real bedroom, at home. Somehow, the comfort of four walls should have brought him relief. But everything felt wrong. The air was too still. His reflection in the mirror was too delayed. And in the corner, near his closet, was a shadow that didn't belong. It stretched from nothing. No object, no light source, no reason. He stood slowly, not turning his back to it. He remembered the voice. "Don't turn around." He edged toward the door, the shadow pulsing slightly, like it was breathing. Just before he reached the handle, it spoke again. "You brought me back with you." And the lights went out. You know that feeling just before you fall asleep, the one where your thoughts get blurry, your body starts to sink, and for a moment everything is calm. But then something shifts. Your eyes fly open and you realize you're not alone. Something is watching you. This is a story about a group of friends who went camping deep in the Appalachian wilderness. What started as a weekend escape from the city turned into a waking nightmare, because one of them brought something back with them, something that never left. If you're watching this in bed, maybe turn on a light. And whatever you do, don't look at the shadow in the corner of you. Three friends, Ben, Cassie, and Jordan, had been planning the trip for months. It was supposed to be a reunion of sorts. College was behind them, adulthood was knocking, and this camping trip felt like one last breath of freedom before life got serious. They picked a remote spot, miles off the trail, far from any cell signal or signs of civilization. Exactly what they wanted. The first day was perfect. Clear skies, warm breeze, and nothing but laughter as they set up their tents near a rust-colored creek. That night they built a fire, told old stories, and drank cheap beer until the stars blurred above them. But around midnight the wind died completely, not just slowed. Stopped. The trees no longer swayed, the leaves no longer rustled, and even the insects went silent. The fire popped once, then nothing. Cassie was the first to speak. "Do you guys feel that?" Ben glanced up from his seat. "Feel what?" "I don't know," she said, her voice low. "It's like the woods are holding their breath." They all laughed it off, but none of them could deny it. The silence was unnatural, oppressive, the kind of silence that listens. Then Jordan pointed into the trees. "There, did you see that?" Ben and Cassie turned. Nothing, just black between the tree trunks. But Jordan swore he saw something. A figure, not moving, just standing there. Deeper in the forest, barely visible in the glow of the firelight. "I think someone's watching us," he whispered. Ben grabbed a flashlight and scanned the woods, but the beam couldn't cut deep enough. Just long shadows stretching and bending, the kind that made you think something was moving, until you blinked and nothing was there. "Probably just a deer or something," Ben muttered, trying to sound confident. "Come on, let's call it a night." They climbed into their tents, the fire crackling low behind them. But no one slept. Hours passed. At some point, Cassie opened her eyes. The tent was completely dark, but she sensed movement. A shift in the air. Her body tensed as something dragged lightly across the outside of her tent. Not a branch, not the wind. Something with fingers. She held her breath, heart hammering. The brushing stopped. Then, silence. She didn't dare move until the gray light of dawn finally bled through the canvas walls. In the morning, she found footprints around the tent. Not animal prints, bare feet. "Someone was here," she said, her voice cracking. But the others were skeptical. Maybe one of them walked around in the night. Maybe they were just freaking each other out, but Cassie knew what she felt. She wasn't dreaming. They should have packed up and left right then. But they didn't. That afternoon, they hiked up a steep ridge to a clearing with a view of the valley. They tried to pretend everything was fine, tried to convince themselves it was just an overactive imagination. But as the sun started sinking, Jordan noticed something on the far ridge. A man, or at least what looked like one. Thin, still, almost like he was made of the shadows behind him. No face, no movement, just watching. "Let's go back," Jordan said. No one argued. That night they didn't build a fire, didn't talk. They sat inside their tents, zipped up, flashlights off, listening. Cassie couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt it again. That presence, like someone leaning over her, breathing, but not breathing. Not a sound, not even a shift of fabric, just the weight of another being in the same space as her. She opened her eyes. There, inside the tent, was a shape, not moving, just there. She froze. It wasn't Ben. It wasn't Jordan. She couldn't even make out a face, just a black form darker than the tent around it. A shape that had no business being there. Then it turned, slowly, as if it had all the time in the world, and it smiled.